The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest building in known space. Its walls were made of living crystal that changed color with the mood of those inside. Today those walls glowed a deep, angry red dot. Ambassador Catherine Moore stood alone at the center of the chamber. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but she held herself like a soldier. Around her, in rising circles of seats, sat the representatives of 47 alien species. Some had scales, some had tentacles, some were made of light itself. All of them were looking at her with expressions that ranged from pity to contempt. High Counselor Vethrin was the tallest being in the room. His skin changed colors like a mood ring, and right now it was shifting between purple and black. He held a golden staff that was older than human civilization. "The Council has made its decision," Vethrin announced. His voice echoed through the chamber, translated instantly into every language known to exist. "Regarding the human request for military help in defending the Kepler colonies, we find that such action is not in the Council's interest." Catherine felt her heart sink, but she did not let it show on her face. Behind her, watching through a quantum communication link, Admiral Samuel Drake sat on the bridge of his warship. The old admiral's face was hard as stone. "May I ask why?" Catherine said. Her voice was calm and clear. "The hegemony of silence has already destroyed 3 of our settlements. 40,000 human civilians are dead. Men, women, children, all gone." Counselor Trexa leaned forward. She was a spider-like creature with 6 legs and 8 eyes, and she represented one of the oldest species in the galaxy. "The humans brought this upon themselves. You expanded into territory that was disputed. The Council cannot be expected to protect every young species from the results of its own foolish choices." "Disputed by whom?" Catherine asked. "Those star systems were empty for 10,000 years before we arrived. No one lived there. No one wanted them. The hegemony has historical claims," another counselor said. Catherine shook her head slowly. "The hegemony has warships. That is the only claim they have." The chamber went quiet. Several of the counselors looked uncomfortable. They knew she was right. They did not want to admit it. Admiral Drake's voice came through Catherine's hidden earpiece. "Ambassador, we just received word. Another colony has gone dark. Kepler 4, for to be. 12,000 people. We cannot reach any of them." Catherine closed her eyes for just a moment. 12,000 more lives. 12,000 more families destroyed. And the Council sat here in their beautiful crystal hall and did nothing. When she opened her eyes, something had changed inside her. She reached up and removed the golden badge that hung around her neck. It was the symbol of humanity's membership in the Galactic Council. For 16 years, she had worn it with pride. Now it felt like a chain. For 16 years, Catherine said, humanity has served this council with loyalty and dedication. When the Trellix homeworld was attacked by pirates, we sent our ships to defend them. When the meteor storms destroyed the space stations of Velmori Prime, we sent engineers to rebuild them. When the plague of Nexus 7 threatened to spread across the galaxy, we shared our medical technology freely. She placed the badge on the speaking platform. We asked for nothing in return. We only wanted to be good members of the galactic community. We wanted to prove that we belonged here. High Counselor Vethrin's skin turned a deeper shade of purple. "Ambassador Moore, emotional speeches will not change our decision. The matter is closed." "Yes," Catherine said quietly. "I believe it is." She turned and began walking toward the exit. Her footsteps were the only sound in the vast chamber. Every eye watched her go. "Where do you think you are going?" Counselor Trexa letters, demanded. "We have not dismissed you." Catherine stopped at the door. She looked back at the assembly of alien beings. These creatures who had watched humanity struggle and bleed and die, and had decided it was not their problem. "Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council," she said. "Effective immediately. We will handle our own problems from now on. We do not need your help. We do not want your help." She pushed open the doors and walked out. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then slowly whispers began to spread through the chamber. A few counselors actually laughed out loud. "Let them go," Trexa said with a wave of one leg. They will come crawling back within a year, begging us to take them back. The humans have always been emotional, another counselor agreed. They will calm down and realize their mistake. But High Counselor Vethrin did not laugh. He stared at the doors through which Catherine had disappeared, and he felt something strange in his chest. It was a feeling he had not experienced in a very long time. It took him several moments to recognize what it was. Fear, outside the council building. Catherine walked to the landing platform where her shuttle waited. Her aide, a young man named Kevin Park, was waiting for her with wide eyes. "Ma'am, did you really just do that?" he asked. "I did. But the council is everything. They control trade. They control technology. Without them, we will be alone." Catherine looked up at the sky. It was full of stars, billions of them, stretching out to infinity. Somewhere out there, human colonies were burning. Human children were dying, and the great powers of the galaxy had decided it was not worth their time to help. "We have always been alone, Kevin," she said. "We just did not want to admit it." On the bridge of his warship, Admiral Drake turned to his crew. They were all watching him, waiting to hear what would happen next. "Send a message to Earth," Drake said. "Tell them the Council has abandoned us. Tell them we are on our own now." His communications officer hesitated. "Sir, what else should I say?" Drake looked out at the stars. His face was grim, but there was something else there too. Something that looked almost like hope. "Tell them to build everything we were not allowed to build before. Every weapon. Every ship. Every piece of technology the Council told us was too dangerous, sir." Drake turned back to face his crew. "The Council thought they were protecting the galaxy by keeping us weak. They thought they were controlling us by making us follow their rules. But they made a mistake. A very serious mistake." "What mistake, sir?" The old admiral smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "They taught us everything they knew. They let us study their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses. For 16 years, we learned everything about them. And now they have sent us away, and they think we are helpless." He looked back at the stars one more time. "They're wrong. And soon, very soon, they are going to find out just how wrong they were." The shuttle carrying Ambassador Catherine Moore lifted off from the Council world and headed for human space. Behind her, the great crystal hall continued to glow with its shifting colors. The counselors returned to their normal business. They had already forgotten about the humans. They would remember soon enough. 3 months passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. In the great halls of power across the galaxy, alien politicians made jokes about the stubborn little species that had thrown away everything in a moment of anger. They expected the humans to return any day now, apologizing and begging for forgiveness, but the humans did not return. They did not send messages. They did not ask for negotiations. They simply went quiet. "Commander." Ethan Ross stood on the observation deck of a secret military station hidden in the shadow of a dying star. He was 34 years old, young for such an important position. But the crisis had forced rapid changes throughout the human military. Many older officers had retired or been reassigned. A new generation was taking over. Through the window, Ethan watched dozens of construction ships moving back and forth like busy insects. They were building something massive in the darkness of space, something that would have been illegal under Council law. But Council law no longer applied to humanity. "The latest reports are in," said Lieutenant Amy Collins as she approached him. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a tablet computer that never left her hand. "Dr. Henry Walsh's team finished the new shield technology. It is 4 times stronger than anything the Council has." Ethan nodded slowly. "The Council banned that research 20 years ago. They said it was too dangerous." "They banned a lot of things," Amy replied. "Gravity manipulation, antimatter weapons, advanced artificial intelligence. They said they were protecting galactic stability. They were protecting themselves," Ethan said. "They did not want any young species becoming too powerful. They wanted to keep us dependent on them forever." He turned away from the window and walked toward the command center. Screens covered every wall, showing data from across human space, ship movements, Resource production. Research progress. Everything was happening faster than anyone had expected. How are the civilians taking it? He asked. Amy smiled. Better than we hoped. Recruitment for the military is up 300%. Factories are running day and night. Everyone wants to help. They are angry. Yes, but it is a focused anger. They saw what happened to the Kepler colonies. They saw the Council refuse to help. Now they want to make sure it never happens again, far away on Earth. Secretary of Defense Lisa Grant sat in a bunker deep beneath the mountains. Around her were the most powerful military leaders in human space. Holographic displays showed the position of every human ship, every station, every colony. The hegemony has stopped advancing, reported General Patrick Cole. He was a large man with gray hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. They have taken control of the Kepler systems, but they are not pushing further into our territory. They are waiting, Lisa said. They want to see what we will do. What will we do? Lisa stood up and walked to the main display. It showed the spiral arm of the galaxy where human space existed. Such a small area compared to the vast empires of the elder species. 100 star systems out of billions, but those 100 systems were burning with purpose. Project Lighthouse, she said. What is the status? The first 3 platforms are online, General Cole replied. Full coverage of our border will be ready in 2 months. Any ship that enters our space without permission will be detected immediately. And Project Hammer? A younger officer, Captain Danny Reeves, stepped forward. The first batch of new warships will be ready in 6 weeks. They are faster, stronger, and more heavily armed than anything we have built before. The Council would never have allowed us to create them, Lisa nodded. For decades, humanity had followed Council rules. They had limited their weapons. They had restricted their research. They had tried so hard to be good citizens of the galactic community. And what had it gotten them? Dead colonies. Burned cities. Children screaming as enemy ships descended from the sky. Never again. What about the Council itself? She asked. What are they doing? Danny pulled up a series of communications intercepts. They have sent 3 diplomatic missions to our border. We turned them all away. They are getting nervous. Good. Let them be nervous. There is something else, Danny continued. We intercepted a message from the hegemony to the Council. They are asking for information about our fleet movements, our military strength, our defensive positions. And the Council's response? They said they do not have that information anymore. Which is true. Danny allowed himself a small smile. It turns out the Council depended on us for most of their intelligence gathering. We collected data for them, analyzed it for them, and shared it with them freely. Now that we are gone, they are blind. Lisa felt something she had not felt in months. Hope. For so long, humanity had believed they needed the Council. They had believed they were weak and small and helpless without the protection of the elder species. But now she was beginning to see the truth. The Council had needed humanity more than humanity had needed the Council. In a secret research facility on Mars, Dr. Henry Walsh worked through the night. He was an old man with white hair and hands that shook slightly when he was tired. But his mind was as sharp as ever. Around him, his team of scientists worked on projects that would have gotten them all arrested under Council law, weapons that bent gravity itself, shields that could absorb any energy attack, engines that allowed ships to move faster than anything else in known space. How does it feel? Asked his assistant, a young woman named Nicole Barnes. How does what feel? Being able to do this? Being able to actually build the things you have been thinking about for 30 years. Henry stopped what he was doing and looked at her. His eyes were tired, but burning with something that might have been excitement. When I was young, he said, I had so many ideas. So many dreams about what we could create. But every time I tried to develop something new, the Council stepped in. They said it was too dangerous. They said it would disrupt galactic stability. They forced us to destroy our research and start over. He turned back to his work. I spent my entire career being told what I could not do. being told that humanity was too young, too reckless, too dangerous to be trusted with advanced technology. Nicole waited for him to continue. No, Henry said. Now, I get to find out what we are actually capable of. And I think the answer is going to surprise everyone, including us. Outside the research facility, the red deserts of Mars stretched to the horizon. Above, the sky was full of ships coming and going, carrying supplies and personnel to the dozens of secret projects scattered across. Human space, the galaxy thought humanity was hiding in shame. The galaxy thought humans were licking their wounds and waiting to apologize. The galaxy was wrong in the dark between stars. Where no one was watching, humanity was building an army. They were creating weapons that had never existed before. They were preparing for a war that everyone else thought they could not win. And somewhere in the darkness, the hegemony of silence was watching. Their scouts could not penetrate human borders. Their spies had gone quiet. All they knew was that something was happening. Something big. Something that was going to change. Everything. The humans were not just preparing to defend themselves. They were preparing to show the galaxy what happened when you pushed humanity too far. The elder species had made a terrible mistake. They had treated humans like children. They had kept them weak and dependent. They had laughed at them when they left. Now they would learn the truth. Humans were never children. They were just waiting for the right moment to show their true strength, and that moment was coming very, very soon, on the council world of Harmony Prime. High Counselor Vethrin received a visitor in his private office. The visitor was an ambassador from the hegemony of silence, a creature so strange that it hurt to look at directly. It seemed to be made of shadows and sharp angles, and when it moved, reality itself seemed to bend around it. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," the hegemony ambassador said. Its voice sounded like metal scraping against metal. Vethrin kept his expression calm, but his skin changed color slightly, showing his discomfort. "The council is always willing to speak with all species. What brings you here?" "The humans." "Ah." Vethrin had expected this. "What about them?" "They have gone silent. Our scouts cannot enter their space. Our spies have disappeared. We do not know what they are doing. Is that not what you wanted?" Vethrin asked carefully. "You drove them from the Kepler systems. You destroyed their colonies. They have retreated behind their borders. Your victory appears complete." The hegemony ambassador made a sound that might have been a laugh. "That is what concerns us. They should be weak now. They should be sending desperate messages, begging for mercy. They should be trying to negotiate, but they are not. No, instead, our sensors detect massive energy signatures from within their territory. They are building something. Many things. We do not know what." Vethrin was quiet for a moment. He had been thinking about the humans a great deal lately. Something about their departure continued to bother him. "What would you have us do?" he finally asked. "We need information. You must have spies among them. Agents, sources that can tell us what they are planning." "We had such agents," Vethrin admitted. "They have stopped reporting. We believe the humans identified them and removed them. Quietly, efficiently." The hegemony ambassador went very still. "The humans found all of your spies." "It appears so. Within weeks of leaving the council, they identified and eliminated every intelligence asset we had placed among them. It should not be possible. The humans were always so trusting, so open." "Yes," Vethrin said slowly. "They were." He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the beautiful gardens of Harmony Prime stretched toward the horizon. Everything was peaceful. Everything was perfect. The council had maintained order in the galaxy for 6,000 years, but something had changed. Something had shifted, and Vethrin could not shake the feeling that they had all made a terrible mistake. "I will be honest with you," he said, without turning around. "I do not know what the humans are doing, but I am beginning to suspect that we have underestimated them. They are barely out of their childhood as a species, perhaps. Or perhaps that is what they wanted us to think." Far away, in a hidden shipyard orbiting a brown dwarf star, Commander Rachel Kim walked through the construction bay. All around her, skeletons of warships rose toward the ceiling like the bones of giant metal beasts. Workers swarmed over the massive structures, both human and robotic. Sparks flew constantly as welding torches sealed armor plates into place. The air hummed with energy and purpose. Her chief engineer, Carl Peterson, walked beside her. He was an older man with rough hands and tired eyes, but there was excitement in his voice as he spoke. "The new Dreadnought class will be ready in 6 weeks," Carl said. "We have incorporated the gravity manipulation systems that the Council banned. These ships will be faster and more agile than anything else in the galaxy." Rachel stopped beside one of the massive weapons being installed on the nearest ship. It was a long cylinder made of some material she did not recognize. "What is this?" she asked. "We call it the Cascade Lance. It fires a concentrated beam of gravitational force. Anything it hits will be crushed like an empty can. The Council classified weapons like this as crimes against civilization." Carl shrugged. "The Council is not here anymore, and the hegemony did not seem too worried about crimes against civilization when they were killing our people." Rachel touched the cold metal of the weapon. 6 months ago, she would have been horrified by something like this. She had believed in the Council's rules. She had believed that galactic law existed to protect everyone. Now she knew better. The rules had never been about protection. They had been about control. The elder species kept the younger ones weak so they could never become a threat. But humanity was done being weak. "How many ships will we have by the end of the year?" she asked. "At current production rates? 40 capital ships, 200 support vessels, and enough fighters to fill the sky of any planet we choose. Is it enough?" Carl was quiet for a moment. "Enough for what?" "Enough to make them afraid. Enough to make them understand that we are not victims anymore." The old engineer smiled grimly. "Commander, when these ships are finished, every species in the galaxy will understand that." On Earth, Ambassador Catherine Moore stood before the General Assembly. Every leader of every human nation was present, either in person or by holographic projection. The room was silent as she spoke. "The hegemony is building up their forces," she said. "Our intelligence suggests they are preparing for another attack, a larger one. They want to finish what they started." "What about the Council?" one of the leaders asked. "Will they help us now?" "No. The Council has made it clear that they will not interfere. They say it is not their concern." Angry murmurs spread through the room. Catherine raised her hand for silence. "But there's good news. 17 other species have contacted us privately. They are unhappy with the Council. They feel trapped by the rules and restrictions. They have offered to establish direct relations with humanity outside of Council control. Are any of them willing to fight beside us? 3 have offered military alliances. Others are waiting to see what happens." Secretary of Defense Lisa Grant stood up from her seat. "What they are waiting to see is whether we can win. If we defeat the hegemony, other species will flock to our side. If we lose everything." "Then we must not lose," Catherine said simply. The room fell silent again. Everyone understood what was at stake. This was not just about survival. This was about proving that humanity had a right to exist on its own terms, that they did not need the Council's permission to be strong, that they would never again bow their heads and wait for someone else to save them. In the depths of space, the hegemony of silence gathered its forces. 200 capital ships, 1,000 support vessels, ground troops in numbers that had not been seen since the great wars of ancient times. Their commander was called the Silence That Devours. It was the most feared warrior in hegemony history. It had conquered 12 species and destroyed countless worlds. It believed this would be a simple operation. The humans were alone. The humans were weak. The humans would fall like all the others had fallen. But as the hegemony fleet prepared to move, strange reports began to come in. Human border stations were detecting their movements and adjusting defenses in real time. Human ships were appearing in places where hegemony scouts had reported empty space. And most disturbing of all, the humans did not seem afraid. Their communications showed no panic, no desperation, no attempts to negotiate. Instead, They sounded almost eager, like they had been waiting for this moment, like they wanted the hegemony to come. The silence that devours dismissed these concerns. The humans were simply too stupid to understand the danger they faced. They would learn soon enough. It gave the order to. Advanced 200 warships began moving toward human space. They had no idea what was waiting for them. The hegemony fleet entered human space on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. 47 massive capital ships led the way, their dark holes blocking out the stars. Behind them came 300 support vessels carrying troops, supplies, and weapons. It was the largest military force the hegemony had assembled in 1,000 years. They expected to find frightened colonists hiding behind outdated defenses. They expected the humans to run or surrender. They expected an easy victory. They found Commander Ethan Ross waiting for them. The first human defense fleet hung in space at the edge of the Kepler system. 20 ships, far fewer than the enemy. But these were not the ships humanity had built before. These were something new, something the galaxy had never seen. Ethan stood on the bridge of the carrier Independence, watching the enemy approach on his tactical display. Around him, his crew worked their stations with calm efficiency. There was no panic, no fear. They had trained for this moment for months. Enemy fleet entering weapons range in 15 minutes, Lieutenant Amy Collins reported. All ships maintain formation, Ethan ordered. Let them come to us, across the void of space. The silence that devours studied its own displays with growing confusion. The human ships were not running. They were not scattering. They were just sitting there, waiting. It decided to show them their mistake. Attention human vessels, the hegemony commander broadcast on all frequencies. Its metallic voice echoed through every ship in both fleets. You will surrender immediately and submit to processing. Your species has been judged unworthy of continued existence. This is not negotiable. On the Independence, Ethan listened to the message with a slight smile on his face. He activated his own communications system, Hegemony Fleet. This is Commander Ethan Ross of the Human Defense Force. I have a counteroffer. There will be no negotiation. I was not planning to negotiate. I was planning to give you one chance to turn around and go home. You have attacked our people. You have murdered our civilians. You have made war on us without mercy. Ethan's voice hardened. Now you will learn what happens when humanity fights back. Weapons free. The battle began. The hegemony expected Council standard weapons. They had fought against such technology many times before. They knew how to defend against plasma bursts and nuclear missiles and laser beams. Their shields were designed to absorb exactly those kinds of attacks. What they got instead was something completely different. The Cascade. Lance on the lead human ship fired first. A beam of pure gravitational force lanced across space and struck the hegemony flagship directly in the center. The massive warship crumpled like paper being crushed by an invisible hand. In seconds. The most powerful vessel in the hegemony fleet was nothing but twisted metal and floating debris. Before the enemy could react, the human ships began to move. They should have been too slow. They should have been too small. But they accelerated at speeds that seemed impossible. Their gravity drives pushing them through maneuvers that would have torn any Council vessel apart. They weaved through the hegemony formation like dancers. Always moving, never staying still long enough to be targeted. Their weapons fired constantly, shot hitting exactly where it would do the most damage. Plasma torpedoes with antimatter warheads detonated in the heart of the enemy fleet. Each explosion was like a small sun being born and dying in an instant. Hegemony ships vanished in flowers of white fire. Railguns launched metal slugs at nearly the speed of light. The projectiles punched through armor that had been designed to withstand anything the Council might throw at it. Ship after ship broke apart as the slugs tore through them. The silence that devours watched its fleet being destroyed and felt something it had never experienced before in its long existence. Despair. How is this possible? It screamed. These weapons are forbidden. This technology cannot exist. But it did exist. The humans had built it in secret, during all those years when they had pretended to follow council rules. They had studied everything the council knew and then developed things the council had never imagined, and now they were using all of it. The battle lasted for hours of fire and death and destruction. When it was over, 31 hegemony capital ships were either destroyed or so badly damaged they could not fight. Human losses: 7 vessels. With 3 recoverable, Commander Ethan Ross looked at the tactical display showing the scattered remnants of the enemy fleet. He felt no joy, only a cold satisfaction that the job was done. Signaled to all surviving hegemony vessels, he ordered, "You may retreat. Tell your masters what happened here. Tell them that humanity remembers what they did to our colonies. Tell them that if they ever attack us again, we will not stop at defense. We will come for them." The surviving hegemony ships fled on Harmony Prime. High Counselor Vethrin watched the battle recordings in his private chamber. His skin cycled through colors so rapidly that his assistants feared he might be having a medical emergency. "How is this possible?" he whispered, using the exact same words the hegemony commander had used. "They were primitives. We were certain they were primitives." His aide, a junior diplomat named Shrell, spoke very carefully. "It appears the humans were hiding their true capabilities, Counselor. For how long? Our analysts believe from the beginning. From the moment they first made contact with the Council." Vethrin tried to process this information. For 16 years, humanity had been part of the Council. For 16 years, they had seemed so eager to please, so desperate for approval. They had shared their medical technology. They had volunteered for dangerous missions. They had helped rebuild damaged stations and defend threatened worlds. And all that time, they had been watching, learning, recording every weakness, every secret, every flaw in Council defenses. "They played us," Vethrin said slowly. "All of us. Every species in the Council. They let us believe they were weak, so we would underestimate them. It appears so, Counselor." The implications settled over Vethrin like a heavy weight. The Council had spent 6,000 years maintaining order in the galaxy. They had done this by keeping young species dependent, by controlling technology, by ensuring that no one could challenge their authority, and now a species they had dismissed as children had just destroyed the most powerful fleet in 1,000 years. "Call an emergency session of the full Council," Vethrin ordered. "We need to discuss this immediately." "What will you recommend, Counselor?" Vethrin looked at the frozen image on his screen. It showed a human warship firing the Cascade Lance, the weapon that had crushed the hegemony flagship like an insect. "But I think we may have just witnessed the end of everything we built. The galaxy will never be the same after this." On Earth, the news of victory spread within hours. For the first time since the withdrawal from the Council, humanity allowed itself to celebrate. People danced in the streets. Fireworks lit up the sky. The names of the brave soldiers who had fought became instant heroes. But Secretary of Defense Lisa Grant did not celebrate. She sat in her bunker, watching reports come in from across human space, and she knew that this was just the beginning. "The hegemony will not accept this defeat," she said during an emergency meeting. "They will come back with more ships, more weapons, more troops." "Let them come," General Patrick Cole replied. "We will destroy them again. It is not just the hegemony that concerns me." Lisa pulled up a display showing the political structure of the galaxy. "The Council will be watching. If we defeat the hegemony too completely, they may decide we are the greater threat." Ambassador Catherine Moore nodded. "We need to win this war. But we also need to think about what comes after. We cannot fight the entire galaxy. Then what do we do?" Catherine smiled slightly. "We give them something to think about. Something more worrying than our military power." "What could be more worrying than what we just demonstrated?" "An idea," Catherine said. "The idea that the Council system is not the only way. The idea that species can be free to develop on their own terms. The idea that the galaxy does not have to be controlled by a handful of ancient powers." She looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. "We do not just want to survive. We want to change everything. The second battle of the Kepler line came 3 months after the first. The hegemony of silence brought everything they had. 200 capital ships, more than 1,000 support vessels, and weapons platforms that had been banned by council law for centuries. They were desperate now. They had lost too much to walk away. Humanity brought Admiral Samuel Drake. The old warrior had spent 50 years preparing for a war that everyone told him would never happen. While other officers focused on peacekeeping missions and diplomatic escorts, Drake had quietly studied every species in the galaxy. He had analyzed their tactics, their weapons, their psychology. He had developed plans for scenarios that his superiors had called paranoid fantasies. Now, standing on the bridge of the command carrier constellation, he finally got to use those plans. "They are trying to overwhelm us with numbers," his tactical officer reported. Lieutenant Commander Beth Sullivan was young but talented, and her voice was steady despite the size of the enemy fleet on her screen. Drake studied the display calmly. 200 enemy ships against 50 of his own. By any normal calculation, those odds were impossible. But Samuel Drake did not believe in normal calculations. "Execute Operation Checkmate," he ordered. What followed was not a battle. It was a lesson. Human ships, smaller and faster than their enemies, cut through the hegemony fleet like wolves through a flock of sheep. They targeted command vessels first, blinding the enemy's coordination. They destroyed communication relays, leaving each hegemony ship fighting alone. The human commanders knew exactly where to strike. They knew which ships carried the most important officers. They knew which weapons systems were most dangerous. They knew everything because they had spent 16 years inside the council, learning every secret, mapping every weakness. Drake had predicted the hegemony's every move before the battle even started. When the enemy tried to form a defensive circle, human ships were already in position to break it apart. When they tried to retreat, they found human vessels blocking their escape routes. The Cascade Lances fired again and again, crushing hegemony dreadnoughts like toys. Antimatter torpedoes turned the void of space into a sea of white fire. Railgun slugs moving at nearly the speed of light punched through armor that had been designed to last forever. And through it all, Admiral Drake stood on his bridge like a statue carved from stone. He gave orders in a calm voice, adjusting his plans as needed, always thinking 3 steps ahead of his enemy. "Sir," Beth Sullivan said quietly, "the hegemony flagship is attempting to surrender." Drake nodded. "Accept their surrender. All ships cease fire." The battle ended. 170 hegemony capital ships were destroyed or disabled. The rest were captured or had fled into deep space. Human losses: 12 vessels. The hegemony of silence, the terror of 100 worlds, had been broken in a single afternoon. Admiral Drake broadcast a message to the surviving enemy ships. "You will return to your home systems. You will tell your leaders that the war is over. If you ever attack human space again, we will not stop at defense. We will follow you home. We will find every world you have, and we will make sure you can never threaten anyone again." On Harmony Prime, the full Galactic Council assembled an emergency session for the first time in 300 years. Every species was represented. Every power in the known galaxy watched the recordings of the second battle, and every single one of them was afraid. "We must act," Counselor Trexa insisted, her 8 eyes wide with barely controlled panic. "The humans have grown too powerful. If we do not stop them now, they will become a threat to all of us." "Stop them with what?" another counselor demanded. "Did you see what they just did? Our combined fleets could not match that firepower. They have weapons we do not understand, technologies we thought were impossible. They developed those weapons while they were members of this council," High Counselor Vethrin said quietly. "While we were congratulating ourselves on keeping them contained, while we were laughing at their eagerness to please." The chamber fell silent. "They fooled us," Vethrin continued. "All of us. For 16 years, they pretended to be harmless. They studied us. They learned everything about us. And now they have more knowledge of our weaknesses than we have ourselves. What do we do?" someone finally asked. Vethrin closed his eyes. He was old, even by his species standards. He had guided the Council through crises that would have destroyed lesser civilizations. But he had never faced anything like this. "We send an envoy," he said. "We ask for peace." The human terms were announced 1 week later. Ambassador Catherine Moore returned to the council chamber for the first time since her dramatic departure. She stood in the same spot where she had removed her diplomatic credentials, and she read the conditions in a clear, steady voice. Humanity demanded full recognition of all their territorial claims. They demanded reparations for the colonies destroyed by the hegemony. They demanded a permanent seat on the council with veto power over military decisions, and they demanded something that made half the counselors physically ill: the end of technological restrictions. Any species in the galaxy would be free to develop any technology they chose. The council could advise, but it could no longer forbid. "You are destroying everything," Trexa protested. "This system has maintained peace for 6,000 years. This system maintained control for 6,000 years, Catherine corrected. How many species have been kept weak because you did not want them to become competitors? How many civilizations have been trapped in permanent dependence? You called it stability. It was always just power." She placed a document on the central speaking platform. "This is our proposal for a new galactic compact. Not a replacement for the Council, but a reformation. Equal voice for all species. Free exchange of knowledge and technology. Collective defense against threats. And if we refuse?" Catherine's expression did not change. "Then we go our separate ways. You keep your council. We build our own alliances, and we see which system attracts more members." The vote took 6 hours. Arguments raged back and forth. Ancient rivalries surfaced. Accusations flew like weapons. In the end, it was not even close. The new Galactic Compact passed with overwhelming support. Too many species had grown tired of being controlled. Too many had been waiting for someone to challenge the old. Order and humanity had proven that challenge was possible. The signing ceremony took place on a Sunday, Earth time. Ambassador Catherine Moore signed for humanity. The first species in history to leave the Council and return on their own terms. "Admiral." Samuel Drake watched from the observation gallery alongside Secretary Lisa Grant. Below, representatives from dozens of species lined up to add their signatures. Some were former enemies. Some were new allies. All of them were adjusting to a galaxy that had fundamentally changed. "You know, this is just the beginning," Lisa said quietly. "There will be problems, setbacks, species who will try to undermine what we have built." "Of course," Drake replied. "That is true of anything worth building. The question is whether the new system is better than the old one. Do you think it is?" The old admiral was quiet for a moment. He thought about all the years he had spent preparing for a war that was supposed to be impossible. He thought about the colonies that had been destroyed because no one would help them. He thought about the moment when Catherine Moore had placed her credentials on the speaking platform and walked away from everything humanity had worked for. "I think we gave the galaxy a choice it never had before," he finally said. "I think we showed them that things can change, that nothing is permanent, that even the most powerful institutions can be challenged. Is that a good thing?" Drake smiled slightly. "Ask me again in 100 years. By then, we might actually know." Outside the council hall, the stars burned in their eternal patterns. Billions of worlds orbited billions of suns, most of them unknown, unexplored, full of possibilities that no one had yet imagined. For 6,000 years, the galaxy had been divided into those who ruled and those who obeyed. The elder species had built their civilization on the assumption that this was the natural order, that some were meant to lead and others were meant to follow. Humanity had proven that assumption wrong. They had walked away from the UN Council when no one thought it was possible. They had built weapons that no one thought they could build. They had won a war that no one thought they could win. And now they had changed the rules that everyone thought were eternal. The galaxy had shivered when humanity walked away. Now, as they walked back in on their own terms. The galaxy would have to learn to live with a new reality. Humans were not children to be guided and controlled. They were equals, and they were just getting started in shipyards, across human space. New vessels were being constructed. In laboratories on 100 worlds, scientists were developing technologies that would have seemed like magic a generation ago. In academies and training grounds, a new generation was learning that they would never have to bow their heads to anyone. The old order was dead. The new order was beginning. And somewhere in the vastness of space, among the billions of stars and the countless worlds, the future was waiting to be written. Humanity would be holding the pen.